everyone, it's Judy. Surprise, I'm back. Welcome to the all-new Ecosystem Podcast. I'm delighted to be the founder and host of this new podcast designed to help educate, connect, and equip you to do your very best engineering work. Today's guest is none other than Dr. Eric Bogatin. He's going to talk about 100 plus tips for PCB design to help avoid signal integrity problems. But before we jump into that conversation, I wanted to invite you to please subscribe. This is a brand new podcast. We're so excited to open up this community. You can do that by going to thedoubleecosystem.com, and we have resources for you there, and you can sign up for our website and get some great technical resources that are absolutely free, including the book Eric and I are going to talk about today. And I want to say thank you to our friends at Teledyne LaCroix for offering those resources to help us celebrate this week. Also, I want to say thank you so much to our media sponsor, Signal Integrity Journal. You can go to signalintegrityjournal.com and get a free subscription to a wonderful magazine. And Eric Bogatin just happens to be the technical editor and has just started a new podcast. So I want to send you over there to get all those great resources. Everything is free. So I'll put the link in the show notes, but go get these resources and help us celebrate this great week. Thanks again for joining us. Now let's jump into our conversation with Dr. Eric Bogatin. Well, hi, Eric. So good to see you. Thank you so much for being my inaugural guest to the kickoff launch of the Ecosystem Podcast. So good to see you.
Hey, it's great to see you, and congratulations on starting this new podcast. I think it's really exciting,
Thank you.
and I am so honored to be your first guest here. I'm looking forward
Thank you.
to listening in on all the other guests that you bring in.
Thank you. I'm excited. This is a passion project, so I'm really excited to get to do this work. So thank you again. Well, I thought we'd start off at an interesting place before because we've talked lots of times, and I thought, I bet you I know I want to know, inquiring minds want to know, how in the world did you ever get started going down the path of signal integrity when you had, a doctorate in physics and this and that, and then of course you drifted into somehow PCB design, and then you became the dean of Signal Integrity Academy. How did that happen?
It is a really good question because it's one of those cases where it was not by design. I literally fell into it and
Yeah.
just took advantage of opportunities as they came up. And you've said it before. I kind of followed my passion, what I was
Hmm.
interested in, and it's the Japanese philosophy of ikigai. I think we've talked about that.
We
That
have.
you want to find what is something that you have a talent for, what is something you really love doing, what can you make money at, and what can you do that adds to your karma bank, that returns some value to the world? It was, I just followed the opportunities to discover what did I really love and what was I good at and how could I make money and what was the value. And like you said, I got my degrees in physics, in lasers, quantum optics, cosmology, and my mother even told me when I told her I got my PhD in cosmology, and said, "What, you look in the one ads and there's cosmologist wanted apply here?" I mean, it's not very many
Yeah.
slots for that. And so
Yeah.
my first job out of graduate school is at Bell Labs in New Jersey, and I joined a group of bunch of chemists as the token physicist, and they were working on new interconnect technology in the laminates, printed circuit board, and
Oh.
at that time multi-chip modules, and they were building these structures, physical structures with different laminate materials and conductors, but they didn't understand. They were chemists. They didn't understand the electrical properties that were required,
Aha.
and that's really what got me started into signal integrity. It was understanding what were the requirements on the materials for
Hmm.
applications in high-speed interconnects. And so I learned everything in the street and talking to the experts at Bell Labs on interconnects and multi-chip modules and signals on transmission lines. And there was a fellow there, AJ Reynolds, uh, Rennell, who was at Bell Labs in Whippany, I think, who was an expert on printed circuit boards. He was like one of the fathers at Bell Labs on printed circuit board, and I learned a lot from him and other experts there. And then that was my first introduction to the field, and then I joined Raychem Corporation and did a lot of things there. They were famous for taking special functions of materials for different applications. They invented heat shrink tubing, polyswitch
Mm,
fuses, and I joined a startup spinoff from Raychem that was building multi-chip modules. And there, the problem was it was thin film technology, so really really fine lines. It was like 1 mil wide lines, which
right.
40 years ago was revolutionary. And again, same thing. We were trying to sell to engineers, and we need to explain to them why this was
Mm,
great technology, and they worried about electrical properties. And so when I went around, I was doing technical marketing, and I went around to talk to these guys, and I realized they didn't understand electrical properties of interconnects, and I had to learn it and explain it to them. And the golden rule when you're selling a technology push solution rather than a market pull is
right.
you have to first explain what their problem is and why what we've got is the solution to their problem.
Right.
And so I developed a lot of material that talked about what your real problem is you're trying to solve. What are the electrical issues in your interconnects? Why do you want things smaller, controlled impedance, uh, 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 good return paths? Why is that important for you? And here is a solution that does all these things that I told you is really important. And that was how we were selling our multi-chip module technology. And I would go around to companies, I worked with Cray, I worked with Cisco, worked with, at the time it was DEC and all the big computer companies, HP.
Right.
And I would talk to their engineers and explain, hey, here's the problem you have, and here's our solution for it. And so I developed, kind of training material for that as a way of
Well,
selling our
this is how
products.
you became a teacher too.
Well, I always wanted
Sort of.
to, and
Right.
a true confession, I actually applied for teaching faculty teaching positions
Oh,
30 years ago, and I applied 40 different universities, zero response. I got three responses, all saying, "Forget it, not interested." And I asked them, "Well, how come?" And they said, "Yeah, I was 10 years in industry, PhD physics, 10 years in industry."
right.
And they all said, if you really want to get a teaching position, you need to publish more physics. You should go back and get a postdoc position, spend
Oh
a couple of
gosh.
years, and then you can get a faculty. I said, forget it. And
Forget it.
look at how things have turned. I ended up building a business based on teaching and made a lot more money than any faculty guy ever did, doing the same thing they were doing. But I realized that this is part of that opportunity that in going around and talking to companies and explaining, oh, this is what signal integrity is. This is why you have to worry about these problems. Here's the solution for it. I was approached by a local EMC or IEEE, maybe it was EMC Society chapter, and they said, "Boy, this is great stuff. How would you like to do a 2 hour presentation for the IEEE local group to do a training?" And I said, sure. And so we had 150 folks, there was in Santa Clara, 150 folks joined us for 2 hours. I did this and I realized, wow, there's a real opportunity here to do these
Mhm.
trainings. And so my wife and I put together a company that was started out as Bogatin Enterprises. And we realized this is an opportunity to provide training of stuff that engineers just haven't gotten. I never learned it in college. I've got a whole
Right.
PhD. I never learned it. It's
Right.
not taught in electrical engineering departments, and yet it's really, really important. And so this was a niche opportunity that companies in industry were willing to pay to send their engineers to get this training. And
Right.
we built our business up, did this for 20 some years, literally traveled around the world. We recorded them, and we put them all when our company got acquired by LaCroix. We took all the courses that I did, recorded them, and then posted them online, and that has become the Signal Integrity Academy. And so all of those courses I used to do are all available for anybody to view. And I think so. Full disclosure, I'm professor at University of Colorado in Boulder, my dream come true of what I've wanted to do
Right.
all my life. Um, but I'm also a fellow with Teledyne LaCroix. I've continued the connection there. And Teledyne LaCroix has made available to you a coupon code that you can give out to all of your listeners so they can get a
Indeed.
3-month free access to all the content on the Signal Integrity Academy. So I want to make
Thank
sure I
you
get
for
that
that
plug in
lovely
there.
gift. Yes.
Yeah, so
So thank
Teledyne
you for that.
LaCroix is making that available for you. Uh,
So, yes, for our listeners, a little shameless plug here jumping in, and they've given us a promo code. You can go to theecosystem.com. I'll throw that in the show notes for you. And you can go to the Signal Integrity Academy and you can use the promo code EECO22 for the ecosystem. And you can get 90 days for free. And I don't know, it's like $100 a month or something like that. It's a nice
yeah,
savings, and you can take in all the wisdom of Eric Bogatin. So, um, you
and it's
know,
completely free, 100% access, no credit card required. Um, and so try it out for 3 months. You can probably go through most of the courses in the 3 months. You can download everything from the website. It's just like having a full subscription.
so thank you for that celebratory launch week gift that you helped
Absolutely.
facilitate. And
Yeah.
so, and it really is neat to learn about your unlikely path, because those of us that don't have advanced degrees, I always think like, how did I get here? And most people
Yeah.
I talk to
Yeah.
that are on the hardware, like the manufacturing assembly side that I came from, we're all, I say, none of us did this on purpose. Like, it's
Right.
such a quirky thing. But Eric, I always thought, well, you guys did this perfectly. It was this linear path. And so it's funny to hear that, there's this little bit of magic, you know,
I wouldn't say I randomly walked into it, but I took advantage of opportunities, and I
right.
found, I loved the content. It's all about
Hmm.
applied masses equations. It's
Yeah.
about how to think about, the electromagnetics of interconnects and boundary conditions, and it's real practical. And there's a lot of measurements and a lot of
Hmm.
simulation involved. And I love nothing more than, building things and measuring them and simulating and seeing, oh my gosh, the measurement and simulation, they're right on top of each other. And that it all
Right.
comes together. It's such a, for an engineer or scientist, it's such a satisfying feeling to know I understand that system so well, I can predict it to the
Yeah.
pen width of the measurement.
Which is, it's like a
It, it's very satisfying.
solving problems, right?
Yeah,
It's like, I
yeah,
get it.
yeah,
What I intended actually happened, and that you can do that in a predictive way has to be really
yeah.
satisfying. Well, you and I sort of share that. Like, I've worked with design engineers for decades, and just trying to help them, say, get boards built or I would see these like, oh my gosh, you're missing huge parts, right, of this.
Uh-huh.
Or as more EEs started designing boards, which was no one knew that was going to happen, they didn't know anything about. And so I could see, like you said, like, wait, there's an opportunity here, you know?
Right.
And then to
Yeah.
find that like ikigai that you talked about, where it's like, man, and, I sort of, you know, funny circumstance started talking about those things, like, you need to know this, and they're like, this is great, and I'm like, really? So little less formal than you, but good
And it's
story.
important to pay attention to those opportunities
Yeah.
and be flexible to adjust as you see times change.
Hmm.
Um, and it's interesting. I think so. That was 45 years ago when I got started in all this. I think things are changing because now this kind of information, signal integrity, power integrity, EMI, now it's starting to be taught more at universities. And here at CU, one of the things that I've been working on with my colleague, Professor Pickett May, is putting together a whole master's program exactly in this field. The folks at Rolla, what is it, MIST, the Missouri
Missouri.
Institute of Science and Technology, MST. They've been doing this for a long time, feeding
Hmm.
the industry with experienced
Hmm.
engineers.
Hmm.
We're starting this program. I've been training on my own, teaching a class or two here at CU, a whole master's in this field, so that we will eventually be populating the industry with more skilled engineers that kind of get
Which is
started
so
right from the
great.
beginning.
And by the way, for our listeners, Eric has been sending me like his daily emails, like the, if you're looking for an interesting aspect to go into, or this is it, right? If you want to develop further
It's a
education,
hot job market too.
it's a hot job market. Like, the primes are out looking to fill these positions, and they can't find enough talent right now. So,
Yeah.
did you say that master's program is going to be available online as well as in person?
So we're launching it spring of 2023. In fact,
Okay.
I'll send, if I haven't already, I'll send you the link to the website for the High-Speed Digital
Okay.
Engineering Professional Master's
Okay.
Program. There will
Okay.
be one or two classes. We'll launch one class that could be done remotely so that you don't have to be on campus. Most of the classes you have to be
Okay.
on campus for, but we'll have one launched in the spring that you could take remotely off site, and we hope to add a total of three that could be done off site, but most of them are really designed to be on site.
Okay, so let's jump right into
Yeah,
your Appendix A, PCB design guidelines. Oh, it's you and your titles, Eric. I have to look at my notes to minimize signal integrity problems.
yeah,
So you wrote this a while ago, if I'm not mistaken. What why did you write it? And then we're going to jump in and talk about, to our listeners,
yeah.
give them a couple of those tips and
Couple
then send them
tidbits,
over to get, yeah, since obviously we can't cover all 100 right now.
right?
But tell us a little bit about the book, first of all, like,
Yeah.
again, what
Well,
inspired you to
so
do it?
when I started out, teaching all these classes, I've always loved writing. I've written a number of books on packaging technology and some other things in the past. And I was approached by Prentice Hall to um, write a book on one of my classes.
Hmm,
And the basic course I do, the introductory, is essential principles of signal integrity. And so I don't remember, it's maybe like 2002 or one or something like that, three or four. They asked me to write a book, and so I did, and that was the first one that I did with Prentice Hall on signal and power integrity simplified. Uh, and uh, and in that book, I added. So the book is really about the essential principles. It's about
right.
transmission lines, about crosstalk, lossy lines, differential pairs, all that kind of stuff. And I offered. So one of the things I'm a big believer in is when you want to do an estimate ahead of time. When you design something, you want to have an idea of how it's gonna perform. There's
Right.
three levels of tools to use to estimate. There's rules of thumb, there are analytical approximations, and there are numerical simulation tools. And the rules of thumb are incredibly powerful because that's how you gain intuition. It doesn't require a lot of effort to get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
just really simple estimates so you can get an idea, is it 1 nanosecond or is it 20 nanoseconds kind of thing? Is it
Right.
1 nanohenry or 50 nanohenries? And
Mm-hmm.
and so throughout the book, I introduce a lot of rules of thumb, and then I introduced, okay, how do we use that to establish design guidelines? And as I went through each of the chapters, introducing this along the way, I said, there are a lot of these really good ones scattered out of the book. I should just pull them together all in one place. And so I added two appendices. Actually, I think there are three appendices to the book. There is
Oh, okay.
I pulled together all of the rules of thumb. So I have Appendix B was 100 rules of thumb, and Appendix A was 100 design guidelines. And
Okay.
and after I joined Teledyne LaCroix, we said, "Hey, this Appendix A, the 100 design guidelines, it's so popular. Everybody keeps asking me about it. We should just pull it out into a little booklet." And so it's Hillary Lustig's idea to take the Appendix A and put it in a little pocket guide. It literally is a pocket guide. And so if you come to any of the conferences where Teledyne LaCroix is exhibiting, you can get one of the little pocket guides that fits literally in your shirt
Oh,
pocket.
they have a hard copy. It's not
Yeah,
just in.
yeah, and we used
Oh,
to give them
that's
out
cool.
at all the conferences, and so,
Uh-huh.
what we now have is, because we don't go to so many conferences anymore, we
Right.
have the PDF copy of it, but it looks just
Mm-hmm.
like what the Pocket Guide is, and
I
so we
see.
pulled this out, and I edited it and updated it, but it's basically, uh, the most common, design principles, it's the design guideline for, solving or minimizing signal integrity, power integrity, EMI kind of problems. And so I pulled it out from each of the chapters as all in one place. And we've got a whole bunch of these now. We've got this one. There's another one that is, I love lists, and so we have
Yeah. All engineers love lists, by
yeah,
the
it's
way.
easy to keep track of things. And so
Right?
there's another one. This my book of I have 10 different lists, and that's another little pocket guide that's out there. We'll probably
Is
come up
that
with some more.
available on Signal Integrity Academy as well? Or
That
what?
I don't think that one is, but again,
Okay.
I think Hillary might make that available as a teaser
Okay.
to
Well,
download. So
Okay.
bug her about that, and she may get
Okay,
you
I
a
will.
copy of that to give out to your readers and listeners.
Okay. Again, Hillary Teledyne LaCroix, thank you so much for helping us celebrate and
Yeah,
lending us Eric and this great book. And to our listeners, again, not only can you get the 90 days of Signal Integrity Academy, you can also download the Appendix A PCB design guidelines to help you avoid signal integrity problems. So,
right.
that is also available at the ecosystem, and that's the doubleecosystem.com. You can go download it for free there. Plus, we're going to have a newsletter and have neat people like Eric featured in there. So, yeah, go over there and you can download that and get both those as part of our. I'm calling this the IMS pregame blitz week, right? So,
Are
um,
you gonna be at
we'll talk.
IMS?
I am, so I'm looking forward to seeing you there. I
Okay,
know you said you were gonna
I
pop over. We'll
I
talk
am.
about that in a minute.
Okay,
I'm gonna
okay.
ask you about that. Um, do you have, one or two of those tips, like, that you can share with the audience so they could have something they could maybe, like, have a quick takeaway for today?
Sure. So let's see.
Okay.
So there are four sections about signal integrity, about crosstalk or signal quality, I think, crosstalk, PDN, and EMI. And so, like one of them for signal quality is, and it relates to crosstalk as well. When you have single-ended signals and they're transitioning from
Mhm.
one layer to another layer, you have to
Okay.
pay as much attention to the return current as the signal. And we often design the
Mm.
board with beautiful, wonderful signal vias that transition the signal from
Mhm.
the top layer to the or some other layer.
Mhm.
But you have to also worry about the return current. And so one of the rules is, the design guidelines is, when you transition from one signal layer to another signal layer and you have a signal via,
Mhm.
always try
Yep.
to add an adjacent return via. And uh, and that
Oh.
way you provide a low impedance path for the return current, and it dramatically reduces
Mm.
signal crosstalk through the planes. Um, and
Interesting.
so that
That makes
says,
perfect sense.
if you want to do that though, you can't have, power and ground plane as the two references. You can't short them out with a via. And so that says, hey, always try to, another design guys, always try to use the same voltage return plane so that you can have a return via
Mm.
connecting them. And that's the
Got
primary
it.
reason, is so that you can have a return via, because that's always going to be the lowest impedance path between the two planes where the return current has to flow. So that's an example. And
That's a good one.
we got 100 of these really good ones in here. So a lot
I
of
know.
lot of good ones.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, let me ask you this. What happens if you don't do that?
you get more crosstalk. Um, if you, in fact, one of the, let's see, where do I do that? Oh, you know what? I'm doing another webinar, June 14th with
Oh,
Teller and
okay.
LaCroix. And so in one of the classes I teach on printed circuit board design, this is one of the principles that we teach in the class. It's also in my textbook that just came out on prototyping design. And we built a test board. It's a four-layer board. It's got signals on the top, signals on the bottom, two planes in the middle. And we drive a bunch of signals from the top to the bottom layer. We measure the crosstalk on one of those signal lines, and we use two different board designs, one that has no return vias and then one that has a bunch of return vias. And you can see, you can measure dramatically the crosstalk difference between these.
Wow.
It's like, in one case you have like 300, 400 millivolts of crosstalk. In the other case you have 10 millivolts of crosstalk. It's like,
Wow.
order of magnitude or more difference by adding the return vias. So
That's very
it can
cool.
it can have a
So
very big
we
impact.
didn't talk about this ahead of time, but can you send me information to your webinar?
Sure, I'll send you the link to
Okay.
the webinar.
Okay. I'll
And
get that from
even
you later, but I'm
if
sure people, now that you've teased it, now people
yeah,
want to, there you
i-
go.
in fact, the whole webinar is about switching noise in general, what some of the sources are, how do you measure it, and how do you design it out. And it's, this theme
Brilliant.
of the design, the building, the measuring, the analysis, it closes the loop and gives you that
Yep.
real visceral sense of why you want to do these design features. And that's what we
Right.
teach in our classes here. That's what I think engineers love seeing, and that's what I try to do all
Yeah.
of my webinars about these days.
Well, that's kind of my point with choosing the name the ecosystem, is trying to give that more
Holistic.
holistic
Yeah, there you go.
system
Yeah.
based approach because that's what's needed. And if you don't, it's those unintended consequences that'll drive you nuts, and they're expensive and they're time
Consuming to
sucking.
have to fix. Yeah.
They're time consuming. And so that's perfect.
Yeah.
You and I share that ideologically, although you do it obviously with much more technical depth than I could. Um, but it's okay because I just know you.
You know all the right players.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. And I know enough to know who the good ones are and that they're talking about the right stuff.
Who I'm sure we'll be seeing on
Okay,
your podcasts in the future.
I know. Thank you. I'm very excited. Um, okay, let's jump to because you have your hands in so much, it cracks me up. But you and I share some longtime friendships and relationships with our delightful media sponsor, which is Signal Integrity Journal, who's a supporter of the Ecosystem podcast. So thank you again to Signal Integrity Journal. And Eric Bogatin just happens to be the technical editor because, he's got so much time. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about Signal Integrity Journal, kind of what makes it unique, and then tell us about how you became the technical editor?
Sure. So let me do the last one first, because
Okay,
so I've known Janine Love for years because she was involved in DesignCon and got to know her. And
right.
really delightful person, easy to work with, really sharp,
Mm-hmm.
and she is associated with Horizon House publication,
Right.
and they do Microwave Journal. And Microwave
Yes.
Journal is they've been around for like 35 years and been addressing technical issues in the microwave industry. It's
Did you know that I used to guest blog for them?
Did you really? Okay, so
I
so you've
did
been part of the family for a long time.
for a long, long time,
And
since like 2009 or 10.
yeah, they have a great reputation. They have a lot of really great technical content as well as industry
They
content.
do.
And so Janine was having discussions with the publisher at Carl Sheffers
Yep.
and Pat Hindle, the editor of
Mhm.
Microjournal, and they were saying, we should do one of these for signal integrity. And naturally, they had the Microwave Journal. Why not Signal Integrity Journal? And so they started the discussion. And because I knew Janine from DesignCon, she
Janine goes, "I got somebody."
yeah, so I know someone. And
Yeah.
so we all got together. We had a lot of discussions. It was such a great idea because the whole idea originally was really built on three premises. One is your word before, holistic, to take a holistic approach for signal integrity, power integrity, and EMI.
Mhm.
Traditionally they've been so separate, but they have a lot of overlap. And so the theme for the Signal Integrity Journal, in fact, in the promo material for it, or the premiere issue, we have those three Venn diagrams of signal integrity, power integrity, EMI, and we show it where
Mhm.
they intersect. And that's what we wanted
I
the
see.
SI Journal to cover, is that holistic
I see.
overview of all three areas, where they are separate, where they interact with each other, and when they overlap completely. And so that
Well,
was, yeah,
your dear friend and mine, Steve Sandler, said something really funny one time when I did a podcast with him. He's like, "I don't think the electrons say, 'I'm a signal integrity, I'm a power integrity.' No, I'm an
yeah.
EMI." He goes, "They're electrons, right?" And, trying to like they just all act differently, and so we classify them, and I'm like, "That's funny."
And that's a really important point, because the
Yeah.
problems that we deal with, they don't define themselves by, I'm a signal integrity problem.
Right.
We do that on the outside in order
Yes.
to, define
Yes.
disciplines around them. But the
Yes.
problems are interdisciplinary. They're
Yes.
system related generally. And
There
that's
you
what we
go.
wanted the SI Journal to focus on, is the
Mm.
system approach to solving these high speed digital engineering problems. So
Mhm.
that was the first key element of it. The second was, there is, and I mean this, well, I hesitate to say in the most loving way, but if you are familiar with a lot of the other magazines that have been out there, and websites
Yes.
and YouTube, there's a lot of crap out there. And
A lot of crap.
there is. And the frustration that I have as a reader, and so many of my colleagues, is, oh my gosh, the titles sound great, but when you invest your time to go into the details, oh, it's a waste of my
Mhm.
time. And we said right at the beginning, we don't want our readers to waste their time in our content.
Yeah.
We want top shelf, high value
Yes.
content. And so
Mhm.
we started right at the beginning with an editorial advisory board, and we said we're gonna curate the content so that guaranteed, if you spend time to read the articles, view the webinars, go to the website, browse through it, you're gonna get high value content out of it. It's not gonna be a waste of your time. And so,
Well, I'm
yeah,
sorry, Eric. What I love and appreciated so much about Microwave Journal and Signal Integrity Journal, because I'm like you, it's like you see people actually reading or taking in bad content, put it in place, and it's
yes,
expensive and
yeah,
painful, and it hurts when you do it and you feel like an idiot. And engineers are so dependent on good quality education, and it doesn't identify itself, right? So it's like how to know. And what I appreciate about those publications, if they've taken the time that they're peer reviewed, so more than one pair of eyes, because you can all argue about this stuff, but there's enough consensus and it's peer reviewed that when you read it, it is curated carefully to be solution oriented. But then okay, more than one set of eyeballs has been on this, right? And so I, again, I'm going to aim high as I put the ecosystem together to try to aspire to that model, because I think bad ideas abound, and it's just
yeah,
painful.
yeah.
It's painful.
And
So,
that I think that's really the value of editors as curators, that they,
absolutely.
and if you trust the judgment of your editor and their advisory board, then you have confidence
Yes.
in the quality of what you're going to be spending your
Yes.
time in. So
Yes.
I think that's why I have a great appreciation for really good editors. Um,
Absolutely. It's a good point. It's a
and
good point.
yeah, so that's
Uh,
SI Journal. So it's
that was
worthwhile place to be.
yeah. So again, nice shout out to our mutual friends at Signal Integrity Journal and Microwave Journal, and I will share links to those publications. It's free and it's quality. So, and fun fact, Eric Bogatin just started a podcast. So, why don't you talk about that new fun venture?
Okay, so I was on so many podcasts with you. I took notes of how you do your podcast because I learned so much from your style of having a conversation. And that's
Yeah.
what so Janine approached me and said, "Hey, we should do everybody's doing we should do a podcast." So we do it's called the Signal Integrity Journal Fundamentals Podcast. And it is literally I call up a buddy of mine and we just have a conversation. I learn,
Yeah.
ask the same I do the things you're doing because that's who I learned it from. And
Yeah.
I ask about how they got started in this, what they're doing, and then we go off in tangents on technical things. And it's my chance to ask them questions. And it's not just, I get a script and I'm asking questions. We're having a
Not
conversation,
scripted.
and I
Right.
let people listen
Yeah.
in on our conversation. So
Everybody
it's
likes to be a little voyeuristic and listen into
yeah,
other people's
yeah,
conversations. I don't know what it is. And me, guilty as charged. I listen to a lot of podcasts, either on YouTube or a podcast app, because it's organic and it's authentic.
yeah,
And these little gems come out. Like there is some planning involved, but it's pretty loose. So, anyways, I
yeah,
binged like on one day, 5 of them. And some of the people I knew, like Al Neves and
yeah,
Bert Simonovich and whatever, but obviously I did like 5 in a row. Like I got sucked in. So, anyways, for our listeners, I'll put the link there as well to go check into Eric's podcast, and definitely go get the free subscription to Signal Integrity Journal. And if you're into RF microwave, millimeter wave, you can also hop over to Microwave Journal as well, because it's really good quality content. Okay, what else do we okay, now we can jam about IMS. So
okay,
this week, as I said, is this is launch week for the Ecosystem podcast, and I'm calling it the IMS pregame blitz. So we're having 4 straight days of people that have either going to IMS or speaking or a company. I did John Coonrod at Rogers last week, and I know you're going there, but I don't know what you're doing there. But I hope to see you there. And of course, you have all the relationships with Signal Integrity Journal or Horizon House folks that actually put that show on.
yeah.
Um, so what's your agenda for next week?
Well, I'm not sure I have one yet, but I'm just going there.
Okay.
I'm actually going as press. I'm going as technical editor for SI Journal.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I'm going to be interviewing, checking on some of the vendors and some of the new technologies that I find there, some of the new instruments that are listed there. I'll probably go to a couple of workshops, but
Mm-hmm.
microwave RF is not really my specialty, so I'm not an
Right.
expert. But I'll look for what are some of the technologies that overlap with signal integrity and EMI and
Mm-hmm.
power integrity, and then I'm going to learn too. So Janine is the event coordinator, I think, or event manager for the show, and
Mm-hmm.
because it's in Denver, and we've got our university here, a number of my students that are around over the summer are going to actually help
Oh,
out at the
good.
show. They'll be around there.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to learn and talk to folks, see all the vendors that have new stuff there.
Yeah,
Um, and I hope I will run into you and Janine. Maybe we'll do dinner or get together while
that'd
we're
be so fun.
down there. And if any of your listeners are there and they run into me, I'd love to have them grab me and say hello.
Okay, again, if you're going to IMS, please, connect with Eric and I on LinkedIn or, keep an eye out. We're both going to be there. I'm going to be there as sort of media too, as I'm launching the ecosystem um, podcast. But another fun fact, in 2015, I was on the publicity committee for IMS. So I'm actually on the steering committee and I'm on it again. So I'm actually the co-chair for the
Wow,
publicity for next year in San Diego, and I got asked to do it, like, 8 years ago, and I'm like, "Okay, whatever," put my name in the hat, and here we are. I just
perfect
happen to
timing.
be launching and moving back into that more, high frequency, high, complexity side of the business, so I've sort of been out of that community for a while. So for me, it's gonna be a big reunion and getting plugged back into that side of my career.
It'll
So
be a fun
again, I'll
time for
put
everybody there.
it will be. And oh my gosh, Eric, it's like I don't know what their turnout, but I've been to shows where 20,000 people show up. It's a massive show.
Yeah,
And a great community and people are so generous with, sharing information and they're a fun group. They're a really fun group. Brilliant. I feel so outstripped, but I'm used to that.
you bring your
um,
own expertise.
I do. I do. Thank you. Um, So, okay, so IMS, that'll be in the show notes, and I can't wait to see you in person, which will be really fun. Um, I loosely talked to Pat Hindle at Signal Integrity Journal about maybe in the future, maybe in San Diego, actually podcasting from there.
Oh, that
So
would be cool. Yeah,
maybe next year
you get a
we'll
little
be
booth and you do
podcasting.
live
Yeah,
podcasts,
yeah.
live interviews.
Yeah, and get some of those, the keynotes, they have a really great Women
Yeah.
in Microwaves group there too that I really like that's run by Sherry
Uh
Hess.
huh. Yeah.
And so they do a really great job and I'm glad to see Janine and then their former events, Kristen, and they're going to be a dynamic team. So looking forward to that. All right. Um, okay. Lastly, we're running low on time and I know you have to go and you're in your lab right now on campus. What other projects are you working on right now? You mentioned the webinar, which I'll add. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before
Well,
I
the
let you?
the big thing that we've got going is our launch of our professional master's program in high-speed digital engineering. Um,
Oh, wow.
this is going to be we're launching it in the spring of 2023. It's going to be a
Okay.
full 2-year master's program that will allow specialty in. It's a basically a master's in electrical engineering, but a specialty in high-speed digital engineering, signal integrity, power integrity, EMI. So
That's
it's
amazing.
30 credits, which is a traditional master's. It's 10 classes taken over a
Mhm.
2-year period.
Mhm.
We have a number of faculty that will be teaching. I'll be teaching some. We have other faculty here that will teach them. But it'll be about signal integrity, about S parameters, about using simulation tools, computational electromagnetics, about learning Maxwell's equations specifically for signal integrity. We'll have a course on EMI and EMI control, um, and a course on printed circuit board design, both for an introductory and an advanced version. So it's a full curriculum, and I'll send you the link
Okay,
for
great.
the the master's program. I think registration opens in July for our spring
Oh,
semester.
okay. Perfect.
And
Okay.
yeah, and again, we'll have one course initially launched that can be done remotely. The others will be on site, and then two more remote courses coming up over the next year or so. So that's what's taken up a lot of my time. And of course, the classes that I teach here, I'm in my. You can see behind me here. This is our capstone lab, our senior design lab that I teach now. And I'm working here this summer with a bunch of students. We're revising the lab and the curriculum, and it's really a lot of fun.
When I used to oversee some of the educational programs at Altium, I saw a lot of capstone projects, but I'd love to be in your
Yeah,
capstone
yeah,
project because I'm sure you learn a lot
they're
where
a
a lot
lot of
of
fun.
seniors like, I did
Yeah.
such a simple dumb thing in my capstone and now I have to like drink from the fire hose now that I have a job. So I'm sure you're like giving them some chops. Well, that's very exciting. Okay, one last grand finale announcement, and I might be getting ahead of my skis here a little bit, but to our audience, Eric and I are conspiring in the background to do a live class with Eric Bogatin, a day and a half in Boulder. Hopefully, by the time we publish this on the 14th, we'll have more details on that at the
And that's
ecosystem.com.
because
And
we
I'll,
don't have enough things to do. So we
we
got to figure
don't,
out
we
something
don't.
to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, so, anyways, that should be really fun. And that would be Eric talking about transmission lines. He has two books on transmission lines, right? Yeah. And so he's going to talk about transmission lines. I'm calling it, Eric, help me with the name. I'm thinking the Electronics Masterclass series. What do you think?
Okay. I think this one's going to
Or help
be
me.
Transmission Lines 101 as
Okay.
kind of the introduction to
Okay. All right.
designing,
Well,
characterizing, measuring, building.
okay. We'll come up with a good title together. We've
Yeah.
done that before. So, but again, go to the ecosystem, the double ecosystem.com, and hopefully, knock on wood, there'll be information for you to register there. If not, just keep coming back. So, again, Eric, thank you so much. It's
Hey, it's
always a
always
delight to be
always a
with
lot of
you.
fun with you, Judy.
Okay. Well, again, to our listeners, thanks for joining us for our season one, episode one of the Ecosystem Podcast. We hope to bring you a lot more great guests like Eric Bogatin. We thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to check out the show notes and subscribe to the podcast. You don't miss anybody like Eric. So thanks so much for being with us today. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember to always stay connected to the ecosystem.
Bye bye.